Okay, I'm Paul from Crypto Balance. I thought I'd do a little video about what everybody is really thinking about at the moment, and that is the Bitcoin price crash. I've been doing a bit of looking around on Reddit, and obviously some people are able to have a bit of a laugh about it, and they seem quite calm and rational and easygoing. I know though, for a lot of people, and I've seen some posts where you can tell people's hearts are really breaking right now. There's a lot of people that are really feeling a lot of pain, which is to be expected. If you've brought in to Bitcoin or other altcoins over the last couple of months, maybe you brought at 15, 17,000 kind of price for Bitcoin, maybe as high as 19,000. These prices right now, as I make this video, about $8,000 Bitcoin's at the moment. Feels like it could be anything by the end of the day, up or down. That's quite hard to take right now. So I thought I'd do a little bit of a story about when I first brought Bitcoin and what happened since then, because essentially this has happened before to a lot of people. So I first brought Bitcoin around here. I mean, I remember looking at the price of Bitcoin. I remember when Bitcoin was $1 and I didn't buy. I remember when Bitcoin was $40 and I didn't buy. I remember when it was $100 and I didn't buy. And I finally brought Bitcoin at around $200 a Bitcoin. I didn't buy much because I didn't have much money at the time. Any amount of Bitcoin brought back then turns out to be a great investment. And recently after that, the price shot up to over $1,000, which was very exciting. I wasn't tempted to sell it at that point, although it would have been a nice chunk of money for me at the time. I decided to hold on to it, and shortly after, and over a long period of time, the price kept dropping and kept dropping and kept dropping until around, when does this go up to? This is July 2015. The price was back to where I brought it from. Now obviously that's much easier to endure than if I had brought at say $1,000, because I was never really down on it. But it's, you say you're not down on your original investment, but if you've brought one Bitcoin at $200 and you had $1,000, if you brought 10 for example, you might have had $10,000 if you decided to sell at that point. So psychologically you don't really see it as, or it's difficult to see it as, I'm not down on my $200 investment because 3 years later or 2 years later it's still at $200. You see yourself as having lost the $800 in price difference between what you could have sold for and what you could sell for now. So even if you managed to buy before this recent huge price run up, no matter when that was, if you didn't sell some of it near the top, it's going to be hard to deal with. Even if you brought in 2000, and if you brought this at this point, you brought one Bitcoin then for $1,000 and it was worth $19,000 at one point in December. Now it's back down to 8. You're still $7,000 up on where you brought it for, but it's difficult to see it that way. You're probably going to see it as that you've just lost $9,000, $10,000. So it's very hard to cope with. I'm quite able to deal with this. I'm not upset by it. I kind of more feeling for the people who are finding this difficult. I mean, I made quite a good call to sell some of my Bitcoin at around 17,000. Not because I don't believe in it anymore or think it would ever go higher than 17,000, but just purely because it was too much money to keep in Bitcoin compared to my actual financial situation personally. And I asked myself the question, if I had, it was about 40 grand in Bitcoin at the time, if I had 40 grand in the bank, would I take it all out of the bank and put it into Bitcoin at near enough all-time highs in December? And the answer was no. That would be too much. Of course wouldn't do that. So I decided to sell about half in December, which means now seeing the price go down, I don't feel happy about that. It allows me to be a bit more indifferent to the price. I think right now, if I hadn't have sold some of my Bitcoin, I would be seeing it as I could have sold for a nice chunk of cash and didn't, and I might have been a bit gutted that maybe I'd have been feeling like I missed out. Fortunately, I don't have to feel like that at the moment, but I really sympathise with anybody that is feeling like they missed out. But what I wanted to get to with this video is if you zoom out on this chart, just move my ugly face out of the way. Ugh. Then soon enough, if it ever loads, back here in this big crash here in 2013, just looks like a little bump in the road. It just, I mean, this might as well all be one big flat line. I know there is a jump here, but really it just looks like bumps in the road. I remember looking at this and thinking it looked like a horrific crash. And it was for, you could have lost a lot of money in it. And a lot of people did. A lot of people will have brought 1,000 and sold down at 200 or worse. There's for everyone that buys Bitcoin, someone has, of course, sold it. So someone sold at 200, someone brought at 200, and there's there would have been some people devastated by that crash. But looking back at it now, it doesn't make too much difference whether you brought here when I did at $200 or here when it was $1,000. And I really hope and I believe that in the future it won't make too much difference whether you brought $15,000 or $8,000. I'm hoping and I believe that Bitcoin will go much, much higher than that, and it's just a case of having to be patient. And if you sell now and you've brought at higher levels and you're underwater on your investment, you guarantee that you make a loss. That's the only way to guarantee that you'll make a loss, is to sell now. So I think the same's going to happen. I think there's a long, long way to go in this technology, in this market. I don't think there's any need to panic. I know it's much easier to say that, and I would add to that though that if you if you overextended and you brought too much and more than you could afford to lose, and I'd still take out, even at these lower prices, I'd still take out what you need to take out to make sure that everything that you have at risk is something that you're that you can afford to lose. But if everything that you do have in the market is something you can afford to lose, I'd say just maybe stop checking on the prices so often and try and forget about it. Do something else, go for a run, go for a long walk. Don't get too upset about it, because I think in another couple of years this horrible looking crash will look like this little bump down here that's long forgotten about. So I hope everyone's feeling alright. Yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.